Hey everyone, welcome back to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating and honestly, surprisingly common trap in relationship psychology. So, a lot of men mistakenly believe that if they just sacrifice their standards, kind of abandon their identity, and completely drop their boundaries, a woman is going to value them more. They think, endless compromise equals endless love. But the psychological patterns we're going to look at today show us that the exact opposite is true. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for this psychological journey. We'll be looking at the foundation of respect, ignoring the warning signs, the trap of codependency, surrendering your boundaries, and finally, the cost of losing yourself. Starting off with Section 1, the foundation of respect. Love shouldn't cost your identity. We really need to establish this right out of the gate. Relationships usually don't fail because love is missing. They fail because one person sacrifices way too much and literally loses their identity, just hoping things will eventually change. Look at this quote. Love should never require you to lose yourself. This isn't about playing cold games or, being distant or refusing to care. It's absolutely crucial to understand the difference between deeply loving someone and just giving away your confidence and self-worth in the process. There is a massive difference here between building mutual respect and abandoning your dignity. Think about it. When you're constantly apologizing for things you didn't even do just to keep the peace, or you're the only one putting in any effort, you aren't building a relationship, you're abandoning your dignity. You can absolutely be kind and patient and forgiving, for sure, but without lowering yourself. You should never, ever have to carry the entire emotional weight of the partnership just to earn basic respect. Moving on to Section 2, ignoring the warning signs, when red flags become normal. So this brings us to a huge pitfall, ignoring serious red flags simply because you're terrified of being alone or starting over from scratch. Be honest. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I always meet women like this? It is so incredibly easy to blame modern dating or apps, right? But honestly, that's often just a convenient lie we tell ourselves to excuse bad behavior. By assuming all women are like this, well, it gives you a free pass. It lets you avoid confronting the real issue and tells you it's just how dating works, rather than looking honestly at your own boundaries. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it completely reframes that thought process. Instead of asking why people act the way they do, try asking yourself this truly powerful question: what have I been accepting that I should have walked away from? Boom. That is a massive shift toward personal accountability. It puts the control right back in your hands. Let's look at exactly how this trap works in 3 distinct steps. First, you notice the disrespectful behavior. Second, you make excuses to avoid conflict, telling yourself, oh, she's just really stressed from work right now. And third, and this is the truly dangerous one, it becomes the new standard. What you repeatedly tolerate quickly becomes your baseline expectation. You are literally teaching people exactly how to treat you by what you let slide. All right, Section 3, the trap of codependency, when she becomes your whole world. This is that dangerous phase where a guy's happiness becomes completely dependent on his partner's mood. Cue the panic and overthinking if she simply doesn't text back right away. And this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic we should be striving for, having a meaningful life of your own versus making her your entire world. A healthy relationship should add to your life, right? It shouldn't completely replace the life you are already building. The absolute strongest partnerships happen when 2 people have their own meaningful, independent lives and they choose to build something incredible together. You start to see these classic symptoms. A man slowly disappears into a relationship. He stops hanging out with friends, totally neglects his personal hobbies, loses focus on his work and goals, and basically drops everything the second she calls. Listen, if you do this, you're actively losing the ambition and discipline that made you an interesting person in the first place. The harsh truth here, that isn't commitment. It's dependency. Putting the weight of your entire identity on the relationship is a massive burden, and frankly, no healthy partnership can carry it. A woman might appreciate your attention, sure, but she should never become your sole source of purpose in life. Which leads us to Section 4, surrendering your boundaries, the peacemaker's dilemma. Let's analyze this mistake of just staying silent and giving up your boundaries to avoid upsetting her or trying to keep the peace. There is so much misunderstanding here. But look at the definition. Boundaries are simply standards that protect mutual respect, honesty, and emotional well-being. They are not walls that push people away. Having boundaries doesn't make you controlling. Actually, a mature partner is going to respect you so much more for communicating your limits honestly. Saying, hey, that doesn't work for me, makes you principled. It doesn't make you difficult. It really comes down to this contrast, having endless patience versus enforcing consequences for disrespect. Endless patience sounds super romantic in the movies, doesn't it? But in reality, just complaining about disrespect isn't enough if your actions don't match your words. Calmly stepping away from a damaging situation is what true self-respect looks like, not a lack of loyalty. Real loyalty should never require you to abandon your own worth.
Being a peacemaker doesn't mean accepting all the blame. This is such a specific, dangerous trap. I'm talking about sending those long, emotional apology messages for things you didn't even do, while your partner takes absolutely zero responsibility. Over time, that completely destroys the balance of the relationship. Resentment moves in and respect moves out.
And finally, Section 5, the cost of losing yourself, trading pieces of yourself for temporary peace. Let's move to and see how this builds. Losing your confidence rarely happens overnight, right? It happens little by little through these tiny compromises. First, you're ignoring obvious red flags, then excusing bad behavior. Soon you're giving up your boundaries, tolerating blatant disrespect, and finally, you face a total loss of identity. It's this incredibly insidious, slippery slope. Before long, a man looks in the mirror and literally no longer recognizes himself, all because he traded his identity for temporary peace. Listen to this really powerful takeaway. A relationship that costs you your identity is far too expensive. Real love should make you feel stronger. It should encourage you to be a better version of yourself. It should never, ever force you to hide your opinions, abandon your deeply held values, or constantly make you question your own worth. So, the crucial point is this: mutual respect flows both ways. Neither person has to shrink so the other can feel bigger. Neither person has to constantly bend over backwards to prove their worth. Standing firmly by your values actually creates a far healthier, much more magnetic dynamic than endless sacrifice ever could.
I want to leave you with this final thought. Loving someone should never require you to stop loving yourself. So what boundaries do you need to reclaim in your own life? Protect your self-respect, clearly communicate your standards, and you're going to give your future relationships the absolute best chance to succeed.